As long as we're standing around, any questions? Whoa, a lot of questions. Okay. URL for the last demo.
Started with an X.
Yeah, that was xanthir.com/video. Any other questions? Really? No questions? I see hands, but I don't think those are questions. Okay.
They must all be experts in the developer tools now. Oh, I feel kind of silly for getting an extra microphone.
Yeah, general questions? Anything about Google? About us?
We do like to talk. This is true. Question.
Actually, it's HTML5 question. There is a limit on the local storage, 5 megs. Is there a way to work around the limitation of that without plugins and without Chrome web apps?
Yeah, so the question is local storage and database. So they have a 5 meg limit right now, which is pretty much standard across all the browsers. And different browsers are experimenting with different ways of allowing that limit to increase. Opera, I think, like when you hit that limit, it will like pop up a little info bar saying, "Do you want to let this site have more space?" Chrome, the way that we're approaching this is we're going to let web store apps request more space, and we've got a couple ideas for other ways to do it, but it's a tough problem to solve without being annoying to the user and asking questions that they really don't know how to answer. We're also looking at ways to basically it's a hard problem, and there isn't really a standard way to get above the 5 meg limit right now.
So you're suggesting using plugin or web app?
So I'm suggesting that if you need to get around it right now, it's going to be browser specific. And in Chrome, the answer is the web store. Or are you making an extension that it plugs into? Any other general questions? I love technical difficulties.
Internet issues first. I mean, that's so different.
Are you close to good?
Nothing burning on mine at all.
Then you're fine.
Here, in front of you.
Well, that is, yes, that's what that's actually, they do, I saw that. Simple Facebook actually, and then
Yeah.
they generate something. The thing is, this is video.
So the question is the dev tools. How useful are they for debugging Android? So they're somewhat useful in that both Chrome and Android and Safari and iPhone and many others are all based on WebKit, and so a lot of the time the same types of issues that you'd be having in one browser you'd be having in the other. But that's about the extent. Now, luckily, Android, I think on the roadmap, is adding dev tools to Android. I don't know what the timeline is on that, though.
Do you know if video will be anytime streamed live, like on video tag?
So the question is streaming on video, and this comes up all the time, and it's a kind of the current technologies that are, well, the way that a bunch of these tags are set up, there's really no easy way to set up streaming right now, but it's definitely one of the things that's being looked at. Yeah.
Apple is doing Apple provides some a little bit of their utility, whatever. You can break stream into several files that they get together. They stack them together, and then you can emulate the streaming.
Okay, so I guess Apple's emulating streaming by sticking together, playing multiple videos one after the other. And I guess I don't see why you couldn't do that in any browser, but the hope is definitely to come up with a non-hacky solution for streaming before too much longer. Another one of the use cases for streaming that keeps coming up is like live video conferencing, that type of stuff. And I could bore you with some of the technical details on why it's a hard problem, but it's definitely one of the things that comes up very often, so I don't think it'll be...
Do you think 1-2 years time it will be solved more or less?
Yeah, within 1-2 years is my guess.
Yeah, this actually Google Maps question. Now,
Google Maps question. That's for Daniels over there. He's a bit busy at the moment. It's a Google Maps question. He hasn't asked it yet.
No. What is the future of Google Maps / Google Earth / Google Earth plugin / Google Earth on Android?
So just a small question.
I mean, I think there are about 5 different applications that does maps now.
We actually have even more Maps APIs than that. I mean, so within the Maps API family, we have version 2, version 3. We have a Maps API for Flash. We have a static Maps API which generates map images, static images at runtime. We also have the Maps Data API, which is one storage, like geolocation storage solution. And then more recently, we have Fusion Tables, which is also another way to store your geo content and serve it up to your maps. So in addition to that, Google Earth is a separate 3D version of maps. And in version 2, we had a Google Earth plugin that allowed you to render a 3D map as a separate map type. But those two projects are actually two separate teams. And in terms of the feature, I'm not really... in terms of the integration between the two, I don't know of any current plans in terms of integrating Earth into V3 or anything like that. Right now, there's sort of 2 standalone separate APIs.
Because you have the same type of fragmentation on Android as well. You have the web-based and the Maps application. And Earth for Android, which is limited but cool.
That's right. Yeah, so the GMM application on Android, for example, also is a separate functioning team. So the Maps API version 3, the ones that are based out in Sydney, they're launching new features. They're adding things like elevation service, right? They're adding Fusion Tables layers. These new features, bicycling directions or whatever, and these features are not necessarily like rolled out immediately on GMM either. It takes the GMM team to take those new features and then actually implement it into their own Android application. So it's actually a separate process. So it's sort of like a cross-functional family of maps groups, teams that all sort of collaborate and talk to each other. But there are sort of separate processes.
There's pros and cons to this in that, like, you get, the APIs come out faster because we don't have to wait for all the teams to get in sync. But yeah, it does kind of suck that, you see this cool thing that you can do, on one platform, but then the other lags a little bit behind.
And I just have a related question on the maps since I have this attention. What is the correct procedure when the maps are out of date? Because there are several places here in Singapore that is off.
I don't know the answer to this, and I think Daniels is trying to tackle technical issues. Or, no?
What? Oh, are we ready?
Are we?
Yeah, we're totally ready.
Well, so
are you ready?
Real quick, Daniels, there was a follow-up question.
Follow-up question.
Yeah, there are several places, especially in Singapore, that is off compared to Google Maps, and I mean entire roads and bridges that are there that has been here for at least a year, and it's not been updated. And I tried to follow the procedure as presented on the webpage and how to report, and basically said to report to the data provider, which is a certain company in Singapore.
Yes,
I checked their maps and they're correct actually. So it's actually the provider has the correct information, but Google has not picked that information up, and there was no way for me to even report that. So what is the proper procedure to do it?
Mapmaker. I say Mapmaker.
Do you want to talk about Mapmaker and how
Anybody use Mapmaker?
people have used Mapmaker to
Anybody use
improve?
Mapmaker? Okay, I'll give you a good example. So last year in the Philippines, there was a really big typhoon, and the maps in the Philippines, not so good. They were just okay. They were just enough from what we got from the government. And when the typhoon happened and people needed to be rescued, we basically called on all the developers all over the world and said, here's a map. Can you guys update every single part of this map that is empty, that doesn't have a street name? If there's a street right there, can you add a street? And it's all used via a tool called Mapmaker. And so what happened was you saw basically over 2 days, maybe even 24 hours, like I don't have the slides with me right now for the before and afters of it, but look up Google Mapmaker, and you'll see the difference of, kind of 24 hours, what happens to a map when somebody goes in, validates the content, throws, a street in there, a street name, like this is any kind of terrain piece that you can put on a map. And so what they did is they did that, and that's how we ended up helping out with saving a lot of the folks that were in trouble and displaced during the typhoon. So for your question over here, I'd say go use Mapmaker. I'm sure, things that are hard with the data providers is that sometimes, we either have the data or sometimes we have to rely on local governments for data. And sometimes that's just not up to date. So we really rely on the community to make sure that that's kind of up to date stuff. You answer your question? Sort of?
Well, sort of, but the problem here is when it does have the correct information, it has had it for a very long time. It's just that Google Maps doesn't match the data of the data provider.
Hey, there might be something different then. We can talk there.
I mean, there might be
In the
some
meantime,
kind of
go play with
latency.
Mapmaker.
There may be some kind of a latency between when our data settings are updated with the better map tiles. I'm not really sure exactly. I can't talk really about that time frame or what that latency looks like.
Just in relation to that, so when you update the maps over Mapmaker, does it actually get put back into the Google data service?
It actually does. So if you look at the maps of the way the Philippines is right now, we actually use a lot of that data. If we didn't have that data, the rest of the world wouldn't have been able to see that. I think another place, was India, that it worked out really well too. So check out those kind of maps and see how. And there's actually, if you look at the Mapmaker page, I know there's examples of showing the Bay Area, even in San Francisco, kind of what happened before and after, and things like that. So just check it out.